Well, hello and welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I am joined by Susan K. Younger. She is a relationship architect, but she is also the C-Suite Network Thought Council leader. And I'm so happy to have you on the show today, Susan. Welcome.
Thank you. And I'm not the leader. I'm just one of the thought leaders. I in no way want to profess to any seniority or brilliance over others. It's just an incredible group of really fun and yet thoughtful, provocative thinkers to be associated with. Yes.
Well, I'm glad I introduced you that way so that you could elaborate further on exactly what the C-Suite Network is really about. Obviously, I am a member as well. A lot of our listeners have heard me speak about it on the podcast. But since you are one of our Thought Council leaders, as well as sharing about yourself and your, business, I really want to get into a little bit more of what the C-Suite Network is and a lot of these things. So let's start with you can kind of just tell us a little bit of your backstory and your company, and then we'll talk more about C-Suite later.
So I am an independent consultant and my background is architecture. I grew up in Mason City, Iowa area. And those of you, because I know you work with music, Meredith Wilson that's the birthplace where he's from. So the city is very musically inclined. My family is. I was band leader, the one who was the marching band with the big tall hat, knocking myself in the head with the baton because I'd forget after practicing without a hat that you've got a 2.5 foot hat on top of you. And the reason I was doing that is my mom recognized early for me that I was shy, tall, smart, and it would be mistaken to be arrogant, stuck up, and unfriendly. And she says, honey, you're going to have to learn to reach out to them. And being shy, that was really hard. So doing something like leading the band was a way to get involved in leadership without having to say a lot, without having to do a lot, and to just be around a group of people that were really accepting. I also had the audacity to say I wanted to be in architecture from the time I was a young girl. And when I was growing up, that wasn't very typical of women to want to do. But Iowa State had a fabulous program in architecture, and I got to graduate from there with a degree in architecture. And I was actually said by one guy, are you here for an MRS degree? And I had to stop and think, what does that spell? In other
Oh,
words, he thought I was looking for a husband there, which was not the case. So anyway, from there, I worked for an architectural firm in Mason City, Iowa for a number of years, and eventually ended up in Dallas, Texas, working for a firm building department stores, moved on to be the director of a store planning division for a department store through the whole retail crazies of the 80s, 90s. And as things were going slightly awry, the company I worked for went through bankruptcy and I was laid off. I came back to Dallas to work for the same firm I had worked for before I got to Arizona doing that. So I've had this whole uh, experience of solopreneur, small business, uh, larger business, serving corporations, inside corporations, outside corporations, consulting with them. And 10 years ago, I was introduced to Bankcode, which is a personality profile that identifies a buy-in. It was said to be a sales tool, but immediately I heard, no, this is how you unlock seeing somebody for who they are. And so, as you know, at this point, I'm trying to launch a new thought called humanitarianism. When we understand who we are and we embrace others and understand who they are, we can help the world to take care of issues as they are at the moment instead of waiting until we get to catastrophes that require a huge humanitarian effort. So, how's that for a lifetime wrapped up in a couple of minutes? A wild
I
woman here, honey.
I love it, Susan. And I have been introduced to you, like I mentioned, through the C-Suite Network, and I've seen you deliver these presentations, right? And I've seen you as this leader, but most people aren't born leaders, and neither were you, right?
No.
And that's what I think is important for, especially our young listeners, to remember that you have to go through some steps to feel confident inside of you to become a leader. Susan, I'm on my own journey to becoming a finally accepting my role as a thought leader, especially in the music industry. Not that I'm reaching out to, the national level, but in our local community and in some of the organizations that I'm a part of, I've
Yeah.
realized that I have a lot more experience in this industry than a lot of other people do. I've been on stage since I was 13 years old. That gives me a quarter
Yeah.
century of experience. That's quite a bit. I think I
It's
qualify
great.
for a PhD in my field of study.
And I think that's great to be able to go. You went to the School of Hard Knocks and life, and the School of Life can teach you something that sometimes somebody with a graduate degree never got because it's all theoretical, and you've really experienced it. Bravo for you.
Thank you. Well, and something that it gives you the confidence. I know
Yes.
who I am. So when you talk about humanitarianism, that just resonates with me so much. And that's really how the book that I'm writing, inspired by our C-suite founder, Jeffrey Hazlett, to write a book called Building the Scene. And what Building the Scene is about building you first before you can go out and deliver a message through a podcast or a song or any of these things. You have to be very comfortable with who you are
Yes.
and what you want to deliver. What is your message? And I think that as so many are turning to podcasts now for whatever reason, whether it's lead generation or to be an authority in your field, whatever the reason is, if you come at it from the wrong angle, it's never going to land the way that you want it to. And that's kind of my mission now. I didn't know this a year ago when I took up podcasting full time, but
Yeah.
now seeing that vision and having a 10,000 foot view of things has kind of always been a superpower of mine. Maybe not while I was trapped in the throes of addiction and things like that, which I've gone through in my life as
Right.
well. And maybe we can have you back on for another episode to get more into my life. But my listeners know my journey and they
Yes.
know where I've come from. And it's for me, it's been accepting this role, realizing that, as the kids say, I'm an OG now, right?
Yeah.
I am one of these people that our younger people are going to look to. I'll turn
Yes.
39 this year. That's not a young
Congratulations.
man anymore, although
Uh,
I feel
Trust me, honey, it's a young man. You can call it a young man. I'm 72 already.
you
And
don't look a day over 50, Susan. You look great.
thank you, doll. Thank you. And I think part of it is keeping in mind that life can be what you make it to be. And you take those experiences that didn't necessarily deliver the expectation you hope for, but you transition that into what can you build from there. And when you look at it from what can you build from there, how can you take the skills and gifts you have, and as you're doing with music and with podcasting, build a life that is completely unexpected, completely open to new experiences that take you places you would have never dreamed of going. And that's the big part of when you look at people who are frequently feeling that life is passing them by. Sometimes when you can help them to see things in themselves that they cannot see, all of a sudden they can dream things they thought they never could. I was having a conversation last night with a friend of ours who's also in the Midwest in a small town, and she was telling me, oh, the stuff you taught me 3 years ago, I've been implementing in my life, and I'm having success that I never expected. I'm impacting people who others have passed by because they looked at them and saw what they thought were either faults or limitations. And I looked at them as, how do I take this aspect of them and let them shine with that part of themselves so that they grow and they're having success too. Some of these are youth that people were dismissing, and now these people are going, they're turning into great leaders. I have great hope that the things that you are doing, the things I want to do, we can share the younger generations information that helps them to unlock their dreams instead of closing themselves down.
And that is a lot of what my mission has become. I like to set lofty goals. So I set out in the last few months to say that we're going to start 1 million podcasters on their journey. And if we only get halfway there, well, then I think we've done quite a bit of good in the world. I say this is how God is healing our world. This is how God is
Absolutely.
healing me. I'm sharing my story and giving my testimony every single day on these Zoom calls and in person. And 7 years ago, I was delivering my testimony one to one with men in prisons because
Yeah.
I was also there. I
Yeah.
was in a prison cell. Not that I was delivering these speeches to men that were there, I was on their level, right?
Right.
I had been a drug dealer in a past life. I spent a year in Mexico on the run, and I had to start making better choices because that wasn't the life that I was meant to live.
Right.
And I now know without a shadow of a doubt, Susan, that this life right now, this is the life that I was meant to live. I was meant to be a lighthouse for not necessarily my generation or the generation before me, but for the 7 generations after and the 7 generations after that. And
Good
that
for
has
you, man.
become a driving force behind every single decision that I make in my life now. And I want to continue to do that. And we do that through things like the C Suite Network and
Yeah.
being a thought council leader, I hope is something that I see in my future as well. I
I
know
do
that you
too.
just hosted an event this last weekend. I sent my friend Allie Porter, who is a brand new friend of mine. She is in the AI field. And I said, hey, girl, you're in Dallas. I know that you've never heard of this company before and you've never heard of us, but I really want you to go and to go to this and to see what the Lead Her Ship Council is really all about. And I think she had the most beautiful day with you
It was
ladies.
it was a great day in Dallas, and I know that Allie was there and really presented herself well, and people are excited about what she's doing. Yes, and we're grateful to have you introduce people. And what's beautiful is we don't all have to be in the same physical neighborhood to create community. And I think that's the thing that we can look at a lot of people who go, I live someplace where there's nobody next door that I can talk to. But boy, with the links we have on things like Zooms or telephones, we can find those communities that really support us.
That's my story, right? I was very
Hmm.
fortunate to see Jeffrey deliver a keynote at the Impact Business Summit in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I want to shout out that company because they actually, the founders of that event, gave me 2 free tickets to come and experience this.
Yeah,
And it absolutely changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. I was never even considering writing a book or speaking on stage or any of these things. I didn't know I was a leader. I did not know that I was a leader and an authority, we like to call it in the business, in my field. That I could be a thought leader and to start to guide other people along this path and to bring them with me. And Susan, I've always been someone that when I see you walking behind me at the bank or the grocery store, I don't care if you're 100 yards away. I'm going to stand there and hold the door and I'm going
yeah.
to greet you as if I owned the building.
Yeah. Welcoming them to your home or allowing them out the door of your home. It's the treating people in a respectful way. And sometimes it's not the way we want to be treated, but the way we see they are looking to be acknowledged and treated in a in a in a manner that is accustomed for them. And I've had many experiences where just saying hi to someone, you could see it brighten their face. Or to ask somebody, are you doing it this way because you think you're expected to or because you really want to? And for them to recognize that we can see they are doing it out of respect for what they think is being expected of them on a daily basis. And it may not be creating the thriving idea for them, but it's sustaining them. And when we can help them to see that gap between sustaining and thriving and the way that they can step into that uncomfortable zone to reach for that thriving, you can see them lighten up and brighten up like, oh, I can have that dream. I can have that next step. It may be hard, but it's something I can do. And as they do that, it makes the world a better place.
Incredible. Well, Susan, I got to get you out of here because in my podcast world, I like to cram them in and
I
get you
I
out
love that.
and not waste your time. We are not Joe Rogan here at the Scene Projects, but I would love to have you back on. We have some other programs. I have one called the Get Better Together Project, and
Happy to
it's
do that.
more long form conversations and really digging into the weeds of our life story. And I would absolutely love to have you back on that program. I'd
I'm
also like
thrilled to be
to
with you.
I would also like to shout out the cyclones. I have a lot of hawks in my community, but not a lot of cyclones.
Well,
So
you got a cyclone right here, baby.
there you go. I had one of the best nights of my life in Ames, Iowa, hanging out with some friends of mine, watching a Grateful Dead spinoff. It was named Further, but that was as close that I had gotten to some people that I had spent
Oh,
my entire life consuming their music and the way that it changed my life. So Ames, Iowa will always have a very special place in my heart, even though I
mine
only
too.
spent about 12 hours there.
No, it's a great college, university. I had a wonderful time, and that's another whole story in itself.
And that's why we got to have you back, Susan. Thank you so much for being part of the
Thank
scene.
you. Thank you.